Yo, what's good everybody? Hope y'all doing well today. In this video, I'm gonna show y'all how to make a beat for Babyface Ray for his recent project Mob. I'm gonna show y'all how I made this from scratch. And with all that being said, let's just jump right into the beat.
Roll up, Tess.
Alright, so the first thing I want to break down is the sample FOP. So for the sample, I made this in the tempo of 95 beats per minute, which is basically just halftime. Most Detroit beats are pretty fast. Usually they'll sit between around 170 to 200 BPM. So in double time, this is 190 beats per minute. The first sound I opened up was the Wash piano preset in Keyscape. So for the MIDI, I ended up using the key of D sharp minor. So my root note here is D sharp, and then I moved it up to the third note in the scale, which is F sharp. Or if you're making a minor chord, it's the note in the middle. And I just have this repeat for the whole 4 measures. So once I had these bass notes down here, I just put in a few top notes, and this is pretty much just using the notes in the D sharp minor scale. It's almost as if I just put the second root note up here and then just kind of went to work with these and just tried to make a somewhat catchy melody. I think I was pretty much using all of the notes here except for the second and 7th notes in the scale. For effects on that, I just put on an EQ, a low cut to cut out some of the bassier frequencies, and then just a high shelf to kind of muffle the sound a little bit. Next, I grabbed this one-shot sound. And with this, I just put in a bell counter melody. And for this pattern, I was just using the first 5 notes in the scale, and I used a different octave of A sharp here just to switch it up. But for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward pattern like the last one. So I took that pattern and I put it into the playlist here, and then I just added a couple of vocal sounds. The first vocal that I added was this one. And of course I needed to pitch it to the actual pattern itself. So I think originally this was in A sharp, and then I just ended up pitching it up by 500 cents. If you want to figure out the key of your vocal, what you end up doing is just hit Control E, go into Edison here, you go to this regions menu, and then go down to detect pitch regions, and then it will tell you what the pitch of the sample is. This hits on the first beat of the first and the third measure. And then I grabbed this other vocal, and similar to the last one, I opened up in Edison and found the pitch of it and pitched it accordingly. I put this on the first beat of the second and fourth measures. For effects on the first vocal chop, I put on some reverb on the default setting, and then I think I just turned the wet up by quite a bit and turned up the size and decay a little bit. Then I put on some RC20 on the default preset and just left on the distortion and added some space with a good amount of decay. Lastly, I went into Shaper Box and I got this phase-ish preset, kind of a filter sort of preset, and I put the master mix to 25%. So by itself, this is what the vocal chops sound like. Once I had that, I put them into the arrangement as such, and then stemmed it out and rendered out the final loop. So once I had the final loop, I put it into a new FOP. I added the drums and put all the finishing touches on it. And when I imported the sample into here, I pitched it down by 1/2 step, so it ended up being in the key of D minor. I actually ended up adding another melody, which is the strings one here at the beginning. It's using this strings one shot. On the strings, I have some RC20 on the vinyl 3 preset with some added space. So once I had those down, I added my drum sounds. I tried to add as many drum sounds that I thought were suitable. I wasn't really going for complexity in terms of the drum patterns. I was more so going for the amount of layers and different drum sounds that I had. And all these drum sounds are from the same drum kit off of Reddit. If I find the link, I'll pin it in the comments below. And also for the drums, I set the project tempo to 190 beats per minute instead of 95. I personally prefer to do the drums in normal time instead of halftime. It's just easier for me to do because it's more similar to the drum patterns that I normally put in. For my first sound, I grabbed the snare, and I just put this on the third beat of every measure. Next, I grabbed this hi-hat. I made a 2-step pattern out of this, but I staggered the velocities. I added a few rolls here and there. The smaller rolls up here are using the 1/6 beat snap to grid, and then these bottom ones over here are using the 1/3 step snap to grid. After the hi-hat, I put in my open hat sound. And I turned up the out knob a little bit just so that the sound's a little tighter. For this, I put it on the 4th beat on the 1st and 5th measures, and then the 2nd beat on the 4th and 8th measures. After the open hat, I put in this perc, and I just put this on the 4th beat on the 2nd and 6th measures, and just a quick little triplet. And then after that, I put in my 2nd perc sound, and I put this on the end of the 4th beat on the 3rd and 7th measures. So the Detroit type of bounce is a little different than the normal trap bounce. A lot of these percs and layers of the drums kind of hit on certain offbeats, so it sounds kind of awkward at lower tempos, but it works a lot better at higher tempos. A lot of the bounce comes from the percs and the 808s and a little bit from the open hats. Depending on the beat, your sound selection is going to be really important, especially with the snares and your 808 and perc selection. So after putting in the percs, I then put in my kick sound. And this primarily just layers with the 808, and this kind of establishes more rhythm in the drums too. And then once I had all of my other drum sounds, I then put in my 808. And similar to the piano bass line in the sample, it's just following those same root notes, just with that same sort of trap bounce, with the first 3 hitting 1.5 beats out from each other, and then just slight variations here in the second half compared to the first. There's just an extra note put here and 1 note taken out here. So that's going to wrap it up for me. Hope y'all enjoyed it and found it pretty helpful. Leave any recommendations, feedback, or anything you got for me in the comments. And that's going to wrap it up for me, so I'll see you on the next one. Peace.